I'm Eston, and this is another podcast of tips, tricks, and oops. And this is January 16th, 2013. And sitting on my left is Therese.
And sitting on my left is...
Well, he told who you are.
Yeah, he told... Oh, sitting on my left is Sanford.
And sitting on my left is nobody. Everybody's over on my right.
Oh, well, then I guess we'll have to be done with that.
That didn't go very well. We ran out of people.
In an episode past, I believe it was episode number 14.
It was.
We talked about a product, and that product was the ScripTalk. Since then, we have gotten a few more tidbits of information that we would like to share with our audience, and Sanford is going to go over a list of a few different notes that he received after our podcast was published, and we're going to be commenting about those. And so, Sanford?
Okay, and we've also gotten a couple of questions about ScripTalk that we were able to get answers from the manufacturer. So it really covered a lot of the areas that we want to try and make sure we get into on the podcast. ScripTalk is the audible prescription reader that enables a blind or visually impaired person or any person who has trouble reading a print medicine label to be able to know what medication they have. And if you recall from the podcast, the label on the medication has a chip on the bottom of the bottle if it's a bottle, or on the box if it's a box, and that chip has all the information that is on the label. So it has the name of the prescription, the dosage, when you're supposed to take it, warnings, things you should avoid, take it with food or take it without food, etc. So it gives you all of that information in a very user-friendly format. The ScripTalk is manufactured and distributed by Envision America, located in Illinois, and after reviewing the podcast that got very favorable reviews from the manufacturer, so I'm very pleased about that.
That's very good.
That's awesome.
They had a couple of things they wanted to clarify, and a couple of things that, as I said, questions that have come up. So we're referencing some of these things back to that episode 14, and I would encourage you, if you'd like, to go back and review that episode too, but I'll try and do these still freestanding. And actually, some of the things were things that Eston talked about, some were things that Therese talked about. So when you recognize your area, add anything else that you want to.
Okay.
Okay.
And I've had a couple of questions.
Mm-hmm.
So Vision America does not charge the pharmacy, and it does web-based training now. So those are two things that are slightly different from what we talked about. They reminded me that some of the things that I was familiar with from my days back in the VA, they've moved on past that. So the pharmacies, they don't do in-person training now at all. They do it all on the web.
Okay.
And it's done, as I said, they don't charge the pharmacy. One of you guys asked the question about the battery life when it's on the batteries, and you're traveling. I think that was your question, Therese. And it's a very simple answer. If you leave the machine on for 30 minutes, it'll start beeping.
Okay.
And that lets you know that if you're not using it, you should shut it off. And that'll keep the battery life going for considerably longer. Another tip that came out of that, actually, because I had pointed out that the door on the battery case was sort of bulging out a little bit. Remember that?
Yeah.
And on the back of the unit, the battery compartment has a little door where the two AAA batteries fit in. And it's a very, very snug close, and it kind of bulges out just a little bit.
Mhm.
You have to kind of push it in a little bit to get it to get locked in closed.
Mhm.
And I was saying, gee, you know, maybe you want to shave that down a little bit so that it doesn't do that, because I hate to force things. They said, no,
Mhm.
that's the way it should be, and that's why.
So the foam is extra thick and
Yep.
that, because eventually that breaks down
It
in any
gets-
device
you're right,
any
right.
device that has it, so they just pack
And
it
even when it
extra.
breaks down, it's still thick enough to
Mhm.
keep the batteries from vibrating, which then would interfere with the
Distort
speaker
the sound.
and distort the
and-
sound.
Okay, gotcha.
One of you also asked the question about hang tags on the boxes. And they were developed for packages that are made out of foil. And what they found was that foil packages interfered with the radio transmission frequencies.
Huh.
So
That makes
the
sense.
hang tag
Okay.
gives it enough room away from the foil to be able to be used.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay,
and that comes
gotcha.
with the unit when you get it.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, and so if you're thinking that looked like a little bit of an annoyance or an inconvenience, it actually works out. The other thing that I would say is as a tip, and again, it's a little bit annoying, but it's the way things are.
Mhm.
The pharmacist has no way of being able to take things out of a lot of boxes or packages
Mhm.
that have to have your prescription label on them.
Mhm.
So what ends up happening, if you get a box, you will open the box, take the medication out, and now it doesn't have a label.
Mhm.
Well, you can, at that point, do a couple of things. You can either keep it with the box, which might be a little inconvenient, or you now, since you know what it is from the label on the box, you could record another label that also comes with the ScripTalk and put that on the bottle or the packaging that you've taken out of the original box. So you have the ability to not have to keep the box if you choose not to.
So you can actually record your own labels if you
And you
want
can,
to.
right.
Okay.
And at that point, you know, you're not probably gonna be able to put all the warnings and all that stuff.
Mhm.
So you may, I would say you might wanna keep the panel that the label is on.
Mhm.
So if you wanted to
Right.
refer back to the prescription name or the dosage or the date or the doctor, any of that other information,
Mhm.
you still have the panel that you could reference back to your recorded label. So that would work.
That would work.
Another thing that was pointed out was that veterans units, when they get them,
Mhm.
have an earpiece and a travel case that come as part of what's issued to them.
Okay.
But those things which are not available for the civilian population are available for purchase.
Mhm.
So you can get a pouch to carry it in if you
Yes.
need one, which
Yeah.
you may or may not.
And
kinda nice.
I don't recall the case per se, but you know, it's probably like a lot of the devices. It's going to be a better fit, and have room for the power cord and
Mhm.
Mhm.
the earpiece and so on. So you can do that. Another point that was made, which is an important one, because it came up, somebody asked me, I know several veterans who have spouses who are also visually impaired, blind, or otherwise unable to read print labels or use print labels effectively.
Mhm.
And the question came up about whether a unit issued to a veteran will read the civilian label.
They're all
And
the same labels, aren't they?
they're the same labels. It will. So if you're a veteran and you have a VA-issued ScripTalk unit, it will read your labels that the VA is putting out. But if your husband or wife also needs a ScripTalk, and for whatever reason, and you may not want to have 2 units. If they got their unit, you could read labels. So any ScripTalk unit will read any ScripTalk label.
That's good, so you don't have to buy 2
That makes
units,
sense.
and it would be easier to have, not having to pack 2 units just because you have 2 people using the same medication.
Yeah.
Because if you get families that have a lot with not only spouses but children with visual impairments, or even dyslexia or whatever, that need to read a medication.
And it's funny, I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but you just got into one of the questions that I received.
Yes.
Somebody wanted to know, I am a blind parent, I have a child, can I get my child's medication so that it's got the ScripTalk labels on it? And the answer is yes. I'm going to come to that in a second. I don't want to lose my place, but essentially, and I think again we're correcting slightly part of the process we talked about. I think we talked about not being totally sure what it was, so I'll plead insanity or ignorance or something. But the way the process works is, if you know you have a participating pharmacy and you want to get ScripTalk labels, you go to the pharmacy, you tell them that you want your medication with ScripTalk labels, or in this case for this particular mother, that you want your child's medications also on ScripTalk labels. The pharmacy then faxes Vision America with the information that you're going to be a ScripTalk user at their pharmacy, and ScripTalk then will, free of charge, mail you your reader stations so that you now have the equipment to read the labels. And that's the process. That's how you get your machine. And yes, they're not, you'd ask the question, Therese, about how strict are they with issuing units, and they're taking the position that if you say you need it, you need it.
Fabulous.
Good.
I think so.
Fabulous.
So if you think you need it for your child, or you need it for your husband, so that you can keep track of their medicine, you may be the blind spouse that has a person that you're caring for who's not blind, but you need to be able to help monitor their medications with them. You'd be able to do that.
So many different things. You have to buy
Yeah.
a book for when you need something. You have to have proof from a doctor,
Yeah.
proof from ophthalmologist, income level, and there's 10 or 12 pages of paperwork that you have to fill out to get a device.
Well, Vision
so that's
America
nice.
has made the process very, very simple
That's nice.
and very open, which
Fabulous.
makes it incredibly convenient.
Fabulous.
Probably, and I was guilty of this one too, so I'm going to have to maybe keep my mouth shut more. The correction on the price of the labels was, I think we said something like, and I probably was the one that said it was $1.50 a label.
I think that
Yeah,
was the
that was-
magic.
that was you.
Number.
Right. Notice how they all jumped right on me. Yeah, you said it.
Yeah, that was him.
Right.
He did
Thanks,
it. He
guys.
did it. There's the
Um,
bus. Go under it.
That's not quite accurate. The price of the label varies depending on the number of labels the pharmacy gets, the number of people that they have enrolled, the number of pharmacies that are enrolled in a chain, and so on. So that's sort of a sliding
Scale.
number that'll vary.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Coming to that, if the price of the label is not passed on to the customer, and the pharmacy is not charged for the price of the label, how does Vision America make any money out of this?
I'm not sure I really have the answer to that question,
Oh,
but as long as
okay.
they stay in business, I think we're okay.
Yep.
They've worked it out.
They got it figured out, so.
They've got it figured out. But
Okay,
that's
it's
a
just
good question.
just an
Yeah,
interesting.
that is a good question.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that, from our standpoint, because Therese and I happen to share a pharmacist who is able to live quite well, thank you, on our business alone.
Yeah, most definitely.
ScripTalk is basically, I think in my mind, and I believe Vision America really does promote it this way, it's a value-added service that is promoting not only independence, which is important to us, but it's also promoting safety, which is, I guess, more or less directly important to us too. You don't think of it though that way necessarily.
No.
But you can get into some very serious conditions if you have medication errors, that, especially if you've self-inflicted them.
Oh, yes.
You've taken the wrong medicine, and you're taking your blood pressure is way low than it should be because you've been taking your diabetes medicine, and you can get yourself in bad shape. So from their standpoint, for the pharmacist, it's another value-added service to the customer to make sure that you're safe. What most people don't understand or don't realize is that, I think it's still true, but it definitely used to be absolutely true. It was a fair thing to say that the pharmacist knew more about the medications you were taking than the doctors do. And the pharmacist was the person that really had responsibility to make sure that you didn't have medication errors because of conflicts. A lot of times, you may be going to 2 or 3 or 4 different doctors, and they don't talk to each other, and they start prescribing things that you need to take. And if you're a wise, this is a tip, if you're a wise consumer of medication, you're going to have one pharmacist, so that all of your medication goes through that one portal, that one checkpoint, because that's the pharmacist who's going to say, the doctor has said you need to take X, but it will conflict with what you're taking over here, and we need to contact the doctor to see if there's an alternative. That's the pharmacist's responsibility. And ScripTalk gives the pharmacy a tool to help them work with you as a blind customer to be able to self-manage your medications better.
Which I think is great. I mean,
yeah. ScripTalk also is available in several languages. It can talk Spanish, German, Danish, Canadian, French, British English, and U.S. English.
Wow.
Excuse me.
Which is sort of the same English, but different.
It's just fancier.
And it's a very interesting list of languages. I'm not quite sure how that developed, but at this point, those are the language choices. ScripTalk will not read over-the-counter barcodes, but they probably have barcodes also.
Yeah.
If you're fortunate enough to have an ID mate, the probability is that most of the over-counter drugs are in the ID mate database.
That's good, yeah.
And that's something that we're looking forward in the future to be able to also have a demonstration on.
Yes.
So I think that
about covers it.
That covers it. That is an update, which I'm really happy we got a chance to do. And it's also answering several questions that we've had from people that have watched the podcast or know us. And that's where I think we're wanting to be able to be of use to the blind community. So if you have questions, Eston, what do you have to do?
Go onto the YouTube link and comment. And then we'll be able to answer them both on air or on the website.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today. I'm the very sniffly and sneezy Therese.
I'm the very verbose and sometimes off target Sanford.
And I get to carry the oops today. My name's Eston.